So we got an interview that Hamaguchi did with Final Fantasy Union, and it's going over like leadership, FF7 narrative changes, and the future of Final Fantasy. So, want to hear what Hamaguchi has to say in this interview. Find it interesting when we check stuff like this out, And most of the time, I will watch these off stream or whatever, not even make a video about it. But I need to start doing a bit more, making videos about this and just sharing with you guys my thoughts, reactions, and yeah, maybe sometimes get a bit more clarity of what they're talking about too.
It's always a thrill whenever you get the chance to speak to one of the brilliant minds behind the fabled Final Fantasy franchise. There are just always so many stories to tell.
Oh yeah.
It's why we felt privileged to recently be given the chance to speak with Naoki Hamaguchi, the director of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So, without further ado, let's dive straight into the interview. Did you always envision having so many minigames, or did the volume steadily increase over time due to how much fun the designers were having?
Good question.
Yeah, so when we first started work on Rebirth, we actually spent the first year of development working out the scale of the world map and the volume of content to fit into the game. The way we developed the mini games was actually, it wasn't really making more and more as we went along, because in that first year, after we decided how big the world was going to be and the rough volume of content to go into each area, we actually marked out where we wanted the mini games to be. So we put a mark on the map and say, okay, this is where we're going to have a new mini game that you meet for the first time in this area, or this is going to be a mini game that recurs. You're going to play it across several areas as you travel around the map. And then we hadn't decided on what types of games it'd be or the specifics of them at that point. But when we then went back and filled out the content for each area of the game, that's when we dug into it and decided what we would have put there. So it wasn't really a case of making more and more as we went along. We kind of stuck to the original plan we had in terms of the distribution and the volume of the games.
As a follow-up, were there any mini games you thought would work really well that ended up being cut?
Yeah, so there weren't actually any games that we made or partly made and then had to give up on partway through. I think we don't really have the bandwidth, the resources to just make them at random and then stick them in. And anyway, a lot of the mini games were designed based on the story and how they'd fit into that particular part of the game. Okay, this is what the story's doing in this area, so this is.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I mean, you gotta think like Queen's Blood kind of fits into the story narrative a bit, or at least has its own like side story. The Frog game, Chocobo Racing, all that stuff that's kind of from the OG, minus Queen's Blood, of course, fits into a narrative in some aspect or feels a bit meaningful. Like a lot of minigames feel really meaningful and fun overall. Obviously there's ones I didn't like, the like Boxer one or Rock'em Sock Robots one. I just really dislike that one. And I think I like it less even here in Rebirth compared to OG. And I think there was another one. Not too sure though, but a lot of them I liked. No, there is another one. I just can't remember the name of it, but a lot of them, I would say majority I liked. 89% of them, yeah.
This is the kind of minigame we want along that kind of logic.
Speaking of the Rock'em Sock Robot one.
We had a large number to make anyway. There's about 30 different minigames we had to create.
The piano one, man, that's why I can't wait to go back to this at some point. Like once we get part 3 officially announced or whatever, almost like go back to us, do a new game plus hard mode run, because I wouldn't mind doing the piano stuff again. Reason being, on my first playthrough, I was playing with a freaking like drifty ass broken messed up controller. I had no choice. I couldn't afford another one at the time. And so when it came to doing piano, it just sucked ass for me because of my controller having control drift issues and whatever. I got a better one now, obviously. So yeah, it's now I have a better controller. I want to go back and do the piano mini games because I really dug this idea and concept and I want to get good at them.
From the beginning, so we kind of mapped out what they were going to be. It wasn't really a case of just making some and then trying to find a place for them. So there is one though. This isn't really a game that was changed completely or cut out because it wouldn't fit in the number or anything like that. But in the mini games under Junon, when you've got to get up from under Junon to the top level of Junon, and you get help from the dolphin. And I think in the original Final Fantasy VII, it was a very simple mini game where you just jump on the dolphin's nose and use the extra boost to jump up and grab onto a steel pipe and then climb up from there. And when we started work on the same section in Rebirth, we actually made it pretty much a reproduction of that game as is. And we found out quite quickly that it didn't work. Obviously, the original game, you had a fixed camera, which is looking down
right.
On the player, and it was very easy to work out where the dolphin was, jump on the nose, and get catapulted up. With a free camera, first of all, you can't tell where the dolphin is at all, and it just really didn't work as a game. So that's why we re-examined that, and we decided instead to make it something where you surf around the bay with the help of the dolphin. And
I like this though. I like surf around the bay with the dolphin.
That one, 'cause it just didn't fit into the gameplay.
Card games are a much beloved tradition in the Final Fantasy franchise. How does it feel to have Queen's Blood join the ranks as one of the franchise's great card minigames?
This is my favorite card minigame in Final Fantasy.
I'm happy with the results of Queen's Blood. Certainly, when we were first deciding about what we were going to do for the mini games, and we wanted a mini game that could be played throughout the game in different locations. Obviously, historically, Final Fantasy has had a lot of card games like that, and we felt it was a really good fit to have a card game you could just play with people around the world.
Yeah.
So we started fairly early on. I think the first year or so of development on Queen's Blood, we actually sat there with some physical mock-ups of cards and played around with that, or created a prototype Windows application to just test out the game.
Here's what I'm still hoping, chat. I really would like it if maybe they can, like, Square, come on, man, because this will print money. Come out with a spin-off or whatever, like a free-to-play PC, and I guess make it mobile, because I know that's what they want to do anyway, and make money anyway. But make a like spin-off, like separate, like Queen's Blood game, like Final Fantasy 7 Queen's Blood or something like that. Make it free to play, and or very inexpensive, you know, to buy if they want to make a purchase, like have a charge for it, and just like have it have online, you know, let people go at it. Obviously have like a single player mode too, where you can go against like AI opponents as well, to like, you know, or good tutorial systems, things like that. But I think this is good enough to where it can have its own game, like how example being Gwent from Witcher 3, and how that got its own separate game or spin-off game, whatever. So, but at the same time, I think what Gwent did not stay popular or something like that. Maybe, I don't know if the servers got shut down or something happened with that. But this could be something a bit better than that. I mean, it has sort of some slight similarities to Gwent, but not much. And I think it's a much better overall card game. And it's personally my favorite Final Fantasy card game ever. Like, it's better than Triple Triad to me and all the other card games and past FF games. So, I don't know. Square, come on, man. Do something with that. Give us like a free-to-play PC game version of this, please.
And from those very early prototype phases, we felt, yeah, this game really has legs. It's something that really has an impact on the players, and everyone seemed to like it. So we were fairly confident with it as we worked it up and polished it to the final level. But yeah, it's just really great to see that people have reacted so well to that. I'm very happy with the result.
You've mentioned before that it's still undecided whether things like Rocket Town will appear in Part 3. Can you walk us through the creative process you go through when making tough decisions like this about what should or shouldn't be included?
What? Rocket Town may not be in Part 3? That doesn't make sense. Okay, it has to be there.
I personally believe that the main storyline, the core of the narrative, is not something we should have multiple people playing with and changing. So in that sense, very much decided to trust and leave it down to our main story writer, scenario writer, Mr. Nojima Kazushige.
That is good. He's essentially confirming that they're doing what many other devs are not doing, where a lot of issues going on in the industry right now with a lot of these AAA companies, especially, is you got too many cooks in the kitchen. You got too many higher ups trying to, you know, dictate so much stuff here when it comes to the game development and what should be in the game, what should not be in the game, and how it should be structured, etc. You know, including microtransactions, stuff like that. It ends up not working out well because you don't have like as little people making the decisions, I feel like, or just one person making a final decision on the overall game or certain aspects of the game to have it be a better, polished, fleshed out, content-filled game and be good quality. Because, man, like, think about it. Square Enix, this team at Square Enix was able to give us Rebirth early this year in 2024. Remake came out in 2020, 4 years after Remake initially launched, right? And then they're trying to give us the Part 3 in the 30-year anniversary in 2027. So an even shorter time frame than the past two games. Actually, the first game, once it back in 2018, once it got like taken back internally into Square Enix and got redeveloped, I think it was 2018, 2017, 2018, something like that. They churned out Remake in like 2 to 3 years. So actually, it's not too far from what they did with the first game in that regard. So that is a good sign there, because it means they have very little cooks in the kitchen overall. Like few people actually calling the shots, or what overall it seems like, or at least only have certain people in certain areas, like you're saying, like the head writer basically has got final say or doing the writing, so he's not taking charge of that. That's good, because not a lot of AAA companies are doing that now, and that's why you got like situations like Concord possibly, or Suicide Squad happening, where this is a lot of corporate BS interference stuff.
And it's up to him to write that, really. Oh, but having said that, the initial script that our story writer comes up with is a written story. It's not really written from the perspective of making it presented as a gameplay experience. So certainly that's when myself and the development team step in, and then the changes and adjustments we make are very much in terms of how that's presented through the game structure, the gameplay itself, and what kind of expressions are used to actually show and communicate that story as a game. So that's where we come in terms of our creative input. So one great example of that is the Queen's Blood tournament on the Shinramaru ferry when you're traveling from Junon over to Costa del Sol. And in the original story script that we got, that tournament wasn't part of it at all. It was very much in line with what was in the original game. You'd get on the ferry, there'd be a little travel, and then you'd basically be attacked and go straight into the fight against Genova. But we really felt that as a gameplay experience, that was lacking something. The idea that in real life, if you get one of these big cruise ships, you're excited, you want to have fun, and you want to really recreate that idea of a fun and exciting experience, and like a leisure experience. So that's why we decided to put the Queen's
freaking Nanaki in the soldier outfit.
And again, it really helps pace it as well, because then to the next really serious story beat, which is the Genova fight, that really makes it much more. The feeling of anticipation and fear, it ramps it up, because you've had that more light-hearted, more fun experience before it. And I think in terms of the Queen's Blood tournament and why we chose that, personally, both myself and our co-director, Mr. Toriyama Motomu, we both watched the Queen's Gambit on Netflix, and I think that must have inspired us somehow to put that tournament in there.
That's a fascinating insight. Thank you. Can I also just say that it felt like the sense of humor in Rebirth was completely on point?
Yeah, the sense of humor is really good in Rebirth overall.
In terms of the humor, that comes about quite organically in the development, really. It's not really something that I give orders to people to put these in as a director. A lot of this comes from the development floor level and suggestions from the different team members. I think a lot of the team members who work under me on it are people who played the game when they were children or very young, and they were obviously inspired by it.
Right.
And they've got this feeling of what they remember from the game, and that humor is definitely a part of that. So it's definitely suggestions from them that are, well, could we do this? I'd love to see this. Would it be cool if so-and-so did that? And I think certainly examples of that are something that was talked about a lot was how Red 13 rides on a chocobo and the pose he takes for riding. Or another one is the synergy ability where Barrett and Aerith team up, and Aerith puts on a pair of sunglasses. It really was a case of someone on the team thought, well, wouldn't it be cool if we did that? And they suggested it and actually got into the final game.
How attuned are you to fan feedback throughout the development process, or do you try to avoid it as much as possible to ensure your creative vision isn't influenced by outside sources?
Good question.
Yeah, so in terms of listening to fan feedback, user feedback, I think it's not that it's a bad thing at all. We do listen to it, certainly. I think it's very important in checking if what we were trying to achieve with the game was actually successful, whether it reached the audience and had the effect we wanted to see or not. So it is very useful in doing that, and we definitely I welcome it for that purpose. But as you say, there is definitely a danger of, in development, if you're just listening to fans the whole time and trying to take on board absolutely everything they say, then it really can blur your vision and then kind of move the game.
Yeah, you can't just take all fan feedback.
Team members are listening to feedback, and
you can't. You got to balance it out.
And following different pieces of feedback, it makes the team almost uncontrollable. So I think there is a time and a place for it. Yeah. And generally, the way we approach it is, until we've solidified the core concepts we want to work to, we will very much listen to fan feedback, see how that resonates with what we're thinking of, and basically refine our ideas. But then after that, we kind of, okay, we have the idea now, we've got our direction, we have to work towards that. And then that's when we kind of stop looking at feedback so much. Yeah. I think definitely from my own perspective, I think when you're making anything, if you've got that vision and a clear idea of what you want to make, then if you follow that faithfully, to the end, then I think you'll always get something out of it, and there'll be a response from people, and it will reach some people. So in some ways, once you've got your idea, you just have to stick with it. You have to follow your vision to the end, rather than trying to correct course all along the way. I think that's the right way of doing anything. If you've got an idea, don't think about how it'll be received. You just got to go for it and make it and see where it goes.
Yeah,
so there's one kind of funny story about that, and about my personal way I interact with fan feedback, is that I really, on my personal X account, I very much try and read everything that people say and all the comments. And I think for me, it's very important as a creator to always be listening and aware to what people are saying about your games and about other things as well. So I very much focus on that. But I always try put as much effort in as possible. If when someone's made a comment, to like it, just to react to what they've said. And it's kind of got a rumor going now that because I do seem to react to pretty much everything anyone posts on my channels, it's like, oh, well, Hamaguchi, he's just clearly set up a bot to just press like every time he gets a comment, or he's got someone in the team just to do it. Okay, if it comes in, just press that, and he's given them that job. I can tell you now, I do actually read them all. It is actually me doing all of those likes.
That's awesome.
So, no, it's not automated.
Not a lot of devs do that. Not a lot of devs take the time to do that.
About how much the Final Fantasy franchise means to you personally, with Final Fantasy 4, 6, and 7 having a huge impact on your life and career. Given you're such a big fan, what's it been like to travel around the world to meet with like-minded fans whose lives have also been massively impacted by the franchise?
Yes, I mean, there's a whole gamut of really confusing emotions there, really. Certainly, the fact that, like you say, I was inspired by Final Fantasy originally to take this job, move into this industry and make games, and now it's kind of I'm working with that responsibility for the future of Final Fantasy. So yeah, I'm really happy and glad to be able to do it. But yeah, it is.
So think about this, guys. Like, he's co-director of Rebirth. He was, I believe, was he director? He might have been co-director on Remake as well too. I know he was very involved in that, but yeah, like, he kind of has a big sense of responsibility. Like, this sort of success as a Remake trilogy kind of like rides on him in a lot of ways, but he's not the only person. Obviously, he has a co-director on this game he mentioned earlier, and it's nice that it's not falling all on him. But this, with it being successful, Rebirth is still very successful. Remake very successful, and the part 3 in a trilogy could be really successful too. I have no doubt. And this could lead to him getting other projects, getting him a promotion. Like, I definitely could see him being like an executive or something like that in the future, or getting some promotion of some kind, and or just maybe being ahead of like the FF7 team when it comes to like future FF7 games or projects and things like that. Or maybe he helps with FF17, you know, or other Final Fantasy spinoffs, something like that, because he's doing a great job, in my opinion, overall.
It is a wild ride, and there's a lot of weird feelings about that.
Do you sometimes find it hard to separate Hamaguchi the fan and Hamaguchi the director?
Ah, interesting.
Yes, I think, and this is probably a bad side effect of working in this job for so long, but in some ways, I kind of very difficult for me to kind of switch off and watch anything as just a fan nowadays. Like, whatever, because I've been working as a director and like looking at how to make pieces of entertainment for so long, whenever I watch anything digital or even other pieces of entertainment, it's very difficult to just appreciate it from a fan perspective. I'm always looking at it in terms of, or can I use this as inspiration for my next project, or how would I work this? What can I get from this, etc. So I think, as you said, it's very difficult to have Hamaguchi the fan and to go into that mode anymore. A funny story about that and about how my approach to things is so colored by my work now. Again, I love taking inspiration from all kinds of digital entertainment, not just games. I mean, I love going to the cinema and watching films there. I've actually got a young daughter, she's in middle school now, and recently we go to watch films together a lot. And the way we approach the films and our conversations afterwards, I kind of don't really mesh anymore. Again, as a single fan, as just someone going to enjoy a piece of entertainment, they do want to discuss things like, oh, that scene was great, I love that, that was really fun, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
But from my perspective, when I watch it, I always go think, okay, well, I see what he tried to do there, and that scene, the approach the director took and the way he portrayed that, I wouldn't have done it that way. I definitely think you should have done it differently. No, I wouldn't have done it that way. And I always approach it from that creator side. And I think that's why she really doesn't like talking to me about these things much anymore.
I feel him on that, guys. I do, because I've been a content creator technically for a decade. All right. And I've been playing all these different games over the years from different genres. I mostly do RPGs now. I actually technically started my first YouTube as being like a COD, creator of Call of Duty, and then started being variety. Then eventually just went and like focused on fighting games mainly, and then now I just focus on RPGs mainly. I developed content creator brain, and what I mean by that is like similar to what he's talking about. Like it's hard to shut that off, or it's like kind of like a bad side effect where I sometimes don't always like appreciate things as a fan. I'm critical to an extent of like what I'm watching, whether it's like a movie, TV show, anime. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, or even like content on YouTube, and I get inspired by it, or I kind of critique my head like, oh man, that's interesting. He did it this way, but maybe he could have did this way better or something like that. So I feel him where he's coming from, and that part of the brain you develop, like it's hard to shut off sometimes. So I get that. And I even have other creators I know I'm friends with and stream and whatnot, and they either do this as a hobby or a thing, and they don't always sometimes get my process or mindset because it's like it's not as serious to them as maybe it is to me in terms of like really trying to do some good content on here, be successful, and get the information out there appropriately and not misinformation and things like that or what have you. So yeah, I'm like really critical of my own stuff. I'm critical sometimes of other people's stuff, or even games for that matter. I'll pick through a game when I'm playing, like, oh man, even though I'm not a game dev, I play enough games to know like, okay, this makes sense, this doesn't make sense, and I'll like and dislike different things for different reasons because I've been playing games for so long and done some reviews over the years and just giving impressions and things like that. And from a player perspective, like I'm so used to all these different things and how the games are different too. And yeah, you got to kind of have like some type of like common sense or a brain to understand like, okay, some stuff in these games that they're coming out with nowadays is not good. It's not, and we deserve better.
In terms of your career, you've seen some pretty significant progression throughout the remake project.
Yeah.
What would you say have been some of the biggest changes in terms of your wider responsibility between what you did on Remake compared to Rebirth?
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, so in some ways, the actual day-to-day work I was doing on the two games didn't change all that much. Right from when I was still co-director on Remake.
Yeah, okay, yeah, so he was co-director with
game
Nomura.
Planning and structure, and been in charge of all of that, as well as leading the development team day-to-day. So in terms of my day-to-day role, things didn't change so much. But having said that, I think the biggest difference really with the name change now, it's my name as the full director, is the level of responsibility, and that's the level of...
like I was saying earlier, he has more responsibility in this game. Part two really, of like its success is impacted on him.
All on me. I have to take Rebirth and make it go above what Remake did, and really answer the fans' demands and give them what they want. Live up to the expectations even more, just because it's my name on it now. So I'd say, in terms of responsibility, that was what changed.
Yeah.
As you're now the leader of the project, and Rebirth has won tons of plaudits, which must be great to see, were there any challenges that the team overcame that you were proud of, but that people might not be aware of?
Yeah, so I think in terms of the team that I lead, the absolute essential mission that we've been set by the company is to complete the 7 Remake trilogy, to finish it off and make it the best experience it possibly can. That's absolutely priority number 1. But on top of that, maybe going beyond that, I also felt we really need to reapproach how we make AAA games and try something new and create a new direction for Square Enix's high-level development. And in that sense, I think I really am proud of what we managed to achieve on Final Fantasy VII Rebirth in terms of going away from that more traditional, story-driven, more linear gameplay experience, and really creating that exciting, fresh new look at a more free, open world, open exploration style of game. And I think that's definitely something that will pay dividends in future. Certainly looking forward to what my team's going to be making in future. I'm very excited to see where we can take that new concept as well.
Yeah. Makes sense. Wow. All right. Good interview. Yeah, they're doing a lot of stuff here that he's confirming a lot of stuff that like kind of already knew about, but they're also like doing some stuff that's different than what these other AAA devs are doing. That makes a lot of sense. They're not, wasting time on certain things. They're maybe not like wasting money either on certain things. Cause I get it. Graphics mean a lot to some people or many people, but I'm always going to be the mindset of gameplay over graphics all the time, every day. Obviously, graphics got to look good enough to appeal to people, and visuals got to look good enough to appeal to people when I draw them in. I get that. But I don't think we need these super over-the-top visuals either, when we've already kind of peaked in terms of visual fidelity, I think. And like what PS4, Xbox One era. And then you can't even get 1080p 60 FPS locked in all AAA games on PS5 or Xbox Series X. Like, it's weird. You got some games that are locked at 30 still FPS, and it's like, what are we doing here? So I feel like he's done a good job overall, and with taking the reins as being full director. I guess now I thought he was co-director on Rebirth as well, but I guess the co-director on this doesn't have much responsibility as him. And this also maybe alludes to how the CEO, I believe, was talking earlier this year about how they're trying to change their strategy, their biz strategy and development strategy, and things like that when it comes to their games. So that way they are delivering better quality games overall, instead of just dropping so many freaking games every year that aren't really selling or doing well. So yeah, I love it. I love it, man. Good stuff here from Hamaguchi, and it's nice to know, his thought process a bit more on his role in the company and FF7, the franchise, and just the development process, and how he thinks, how he ticks sometimes. So love these interviews. Really cool.